John, what is up? Are you on America's Most Wanted? We won't turn you in.
Come on, out with it. You're among friends.
Snoopy friends.
You are creating the mystery here. Obviously, you have something you'd like to say. Say it.
I wonder if I could ask you all a silly question.
Oh, John, we're teachers. We answer silly questions all the time.
Hey.
What if I told you you were all characters in a movie I was about to review?
I suppose there's a joke in there somewhere, but I don't get it.
There's nothing to get.
Well, what are we talking about?
Simple. This is movie night. Hello and welcome to Movie Night, in-depth film reviews whenever I get around to posting them. I'm your host, Jonathan Paula. Tonight I'll be reviewing 3 films that feature immortal characters. We begin with Tuck Everlasting. This J. Russell romantic fantasy film was released by Walt Disney Pictures in October of 2002, where it squeaked out $4 million in profit against its $15 million budget. Based on Natalie Babbitt's children's book of the same name, the 96-minute story follows Alexis Bledel, a young girl living in the early 20th century that falls in love with a boy who's part of a family of immortals. Jonathan Jackson stars opposite as the cute and daring love interest, and the two definitely play off each other well, developing an earnest and believable teenage romance. While at least one of them is a teenager, Jackson eventually confides his true age to be north of the century mark.
I'll point you home.
I'd be much obliged. But I want to drink first.
What? No! No!
What?
You don't want that water. It's poison.
I saw you drink some.
Well, now I'm feeling sick.
You don't look ill. You're dry as dust.
I said, leave it alone!
Let go of me! My father would have you arrested!
What? You're not gonna go and tell him now, are you? Hey! Come back! Don't run away!
William Hurt, Victor Garber, Scott Barstow, and Sissy Spacek do their best in poorly integrated supporting roles. It's Ben Kingsley, though, as the man in the yellow suit, who really stands out, a dastardly villain who hides his nefarious intentions behind overly polite manners. He's a very memorable bad guy. Meanwhile, during a quiet boat ride, Hurt imparts fatherly advice to his son's new girlfriend by cautioning, "Don't be afraid of death. Be afraid of the unlived life." It's a powerful message that resonates at the heart of the picture, which is further amplified when you realize he's discussing more than just a single lifespan, but all of eternity. When Bledel is first discovered by the Tuck family, the dilemma they face regarding their compromised existence is a very fascinating one. A peaceful and solitary group, they can't risk the truth of their immortality being revealed, but they can't exactly murder an innocent child either. While everlasting life may seem like an attractive prospect, the insight of these characters suggests that it's more of a curse than anything else, especially when Barstow shares a heartbreaking story of a wife and kids who long ago grew old and died. A coda set during present day is an emotional close to the picture, but it feels rushed and perhaps even unnecessary. Even though the cinematography is rather traditional, sticking mostly to anamorphic close-ups, Russell does show off the beautiful woods and scenery of Maryland very well. William Ross's whimsical score is a perfect fit for the magical romance at the film's center, mixing fiddles and strings with slow melodies. In typical Disney fashion, the PG-rated narrative remains simplistic and predictable, but it also makes you wonder about life and the possibilities of never growing old. A well-paced experience that is slightly more mature than the typical family movie, Tuck Everlasting contains thought-provoking ideas and a wandering story. I thought it was good. For tonight's poll question, if you could stay the same age you are right now and never die, would you choose immortality? Leave your response as a comment below. Second tonight, The Man from Earth. The final effort from prolific Star Trek and Twilight Zone writer Jeremy Bixby, this intriguing science fiction tale was penned from his own deathbed in 1998. Years later, it landed in the hands of director Richard Schenkman, who produced the film in the extremely low budget of only $200,000. In fact, the dual Panasonic DVX-100s they use for filming is the exact camera I used to own before I upgraded to HD. Following its premiere screening at San Diego Comic-Con in July of 2007, this short 87-minute feature found cult success on digital formats, thanks largely in part to illegal distribution over peer-to-peer networks and long-standing availability on streaming services. The narrative begins with a nondescript schoolteacher gathering his colleagues in his small house for a farewell conversation before he moves to another city. As the titular character, David Lee Smith posits a remarkable question to his learned friends. What if a man from the Upper Paleolithic had survived until the present day? The resulting discussion is a deeply involved one. What begins as a scientific hypothetical evolves into an emotional examination of philosophy, religion, and life itself. Smith is calm and patient with his incredulous listeners, weaving a convincing, if unverifiable account of his 14,000 years on Earth. There's a certain frustration and anguish about his condition that makes him such a compelling protagonist. Although they're hardly well known, the small supporting cast includes some faces that might be familiar to Trekkies, including Tony Todd, John Billingsley, Ellen Crawford, and Richard Riley. No one is given any real opportunity to impress, but their simplistic performances have quick sparks of personality that bring a necessary humanity to the otherwise dry story.
You know what could happen? Yeah, the pancreas turns over cells every 24 hours, the stomach lining in 3 days, the entire body in 7 years, but the process falters. Waste accumulates, eventually proves fatal to function. Now, if a quirk in his immune system led to perfect detox, perfect renewal, then yeah, he could duck decay.
That's a secret we'd all love to have.
Would you really want to do that? Live 14,000 years?
Well, if I could stay healthy and I didn't age, I mean, why not?
Yeah. What a chance to learn.
When one of his revelations offends the group, Smith struggles over renouncing the truth for their well-being or holding fast to his fantastic tale. There's no visual effects or flashbacks. The fascinating story of a millenniums-old caveman plays out in the theater of the audience's mind. It's handled with just the right amount of optimism and doubt, allowing the viewer to draw their own conclusions and questions as the dialogue effortlessly rolls along. Taking place entirely in one confined location and boiling down to nothing but a long intellectual argument, this movie could honestly pass for a TED Talk, but therein lies its charm. A subtle score from Mark Hinton Stewart uses rhythmic drums and woodwinds to lay down a mood that grows increasingly more serious by the picture's end. Without any flashy action, big-name talent, or even a traditional narrative structure, this unrated experience still manages to thoroughly captivate from beginning to end. A must-watch for sci-fi fans, The Man from Earth is an absorbing thought experiment on the possibility of immortality. I thought it was awesome. Finally tonight, a review I already shared on the Movie Night Archive channel the night before its premiere, The Age of Adaline. Released on April 24, 2015, this romantic fantasy film from director Lee Toland Krieger is, commendably, an original story written for the screen. The $25 million production stars the classically beautiful Blake Lively as the titular character, a mature, sophisticated, and nurturing soul perpetually stuck in a 29-year-old body. After a freak car accident renders her immortal, she's forced to go through the 20th century in seclusion, always careful no one discovers her remarkable secret. Lively's show-stopping beauty and impeccable fashion sense is matched only by her sage wisdom. Reflecting on the limitations of her life, she remarks, "Love is not the same when there's no growing old together. Without that, love is just heartbreak." The tragedy of her ageless curse hits home when we learn that her only friend is a blind woman, and her own daughter must introduce herself as an elderly grandmother. When a routine traffic stop threatens to reveal her true birth year, Adaline must abandon her life and relocate under a new name, a painful process she repeats every decade. Her outlook on secrecy changes, though, when she falls in love with the ruggedly handsome and charming Michael Huisman.
Would you like a drum roll?
Voila! It was between this and stuffed quail. Please don't tell me you're disappointed.
I'm truly overjoyed.
Yes! Dig in.
Okay.
Well?
As perfect as the music is painful.
You don't like jazz?
No, I love jazz. This is something else.
Their playful yet contentious flirting turns into a serious relationship. It just isn't that convincing. Instead, it's the introduction of Harrison Ford as a decades-old boyfriend late in the story that really makes things interesting. Long known for his leading roles as action heroes, his choices recently have been a refreshing change of pace, as his diminishing skill set is forcing him into more varied projects. But these smaller, character-oriented roles have allowed him to really shine with some nuanced performances. His integral part here showcases real depth and emotion, and although it might be creepy seeing the 72-year-old gaze longingly at a woman some 40 years younger than him, their scenes together are easily the film's strongest. Conversely, the eventual developments with Huisman seem like a bittersweet consolation prize. The Age of Adaline skillfully glides between time periods and flashbacks with ease, artistically framing the San Francisco scenery and talented actors with an ethereal quality. Rob Simonson's quiet and romantic score winds its way throughout, as an unnamed narrator's soft-spoken voice provides critical expositional cues. At 110 minutes, the story is a bit slow setting up the dominoes that come crashing down in the final act. As a result, I feel like a lot more could have been done with the concept, especially with the ending, which seemed like a rushed Deus Machina resolution to what was a very intriguing conflict. Despite this disappointingly narrower focus, Krieger doesn't make any major missteps, and the resulting product is a comfortable and pleasant experience worth enjoying on a date night. The Age of Adaline has graceful characters in a uniquely complex, if unambitious, romance. I thought it was a cool film. Finally tonight, your tweet critiques. If you see a new movie in theaters, tweet your review with the JPMN hashtag. In a few days, we'll be taking our 6th look at superhero films. I'll be reviewing the director's cut of Daredevil from 2002, Green Lantern with Ryan Reynolds, and the hugely anticipated Avengers 2 Age of Ultron, which premieres this week. If you've already seen these films, share your opinions by voting in the polls below or by leaving a comment review. I read them all and will include my favorites in the next episode. If you'd like to watch more Movie Night videos, check out the related reviews on the right, or click subscribe if you'd like to see more of this show in the future. Also, be sure to follow me on social media for updates and exclusive content. Once again, my name is Jonathan Paula. Thank you for watching and listening. Until next time, have a good movie night.